Bill Edgar, look him up. He's the person that they call the Coffin Confessor. If you look him up on Wiki, a successful businessman, he's a counsellor, he's an author, and one of Australia's leading private detectives. He's known for doing what most lawyers and accountants and professionals won't or can't or fear to do. He is one hell of an interesting cat. And he's on the Bonafide podcast right now. Bill Edgar, you are seriously a star. G'day and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and hi to all your listeners. I don't know about the star part. You know, I am who I am and what I am.
I'm looking at a couple of books here. Bill Edgar, The Coffin Confessor. These are through Random House Penguin.
That's correct.
And The Afterlife Confessional. Last Call for Tell All, Bill Edgar. True stories from The Coffin Confessor. For those people who haven't seen your TED Talk, which is sensational, please, I don't want you to feel rushed, so I'm going to turn my microphone off. Can you take me and my listeners through that funeral you went to? Just paint the whole story from the start, because it's such a bloody great story.
So I'm a private detective, and I was engaged to look into some financial matters for a gentleman who I got to know quite well in a very short space of time. This gentleman's name was Graham. He was on his deathbed, and after I found where his money was going and retrieved a bit of it back for him, he was very happy about that. And then we started talking, and we really got into the depth of, life, death, and everything in between. And he was telling me that he wanted something for his funeral. He wanted something big, and he didn't know what. And I suggested his own eulogy. Now, to do your own eulogy, you're leaving it up to family and friends to play it at the funeral. And if they don't like it, they won't play it. It's as simple as that. Now, I said to him, as a joke, I said, mate, how about I just crash your funeral for you?
Yeah.
And we sort of had a chuckle and we went about our own way. So 3 weeks later, I get this text off Graham. And he said, Bill, I just can't get you out of my head. I'm going to engage you to crash my funeral, and this is what I want you to do.
Wow.
Come and meet me. So I went back and saw Graham. We sat together and we wrote everything out that he wanted said. And I said to him, look, is there a specific time you want me to actually stand up and do this? You know, and what do you want? And he told me everything he wanted, and I gave him some ideas as well.
Well, take us through it. And
I said, Graham, well, you know, do you want me to interrupt this best mate because he's such a prick? And he goes, yeah, I do.
Hang
he
on,
says,
stop.
But I want
stop.
you.
This is the bloke that was his best mate who was an asshole.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. But this is why he was an arsehole, this bloke. So Graham said his best mate had been trying to screw his wife whilst he's on his deathbed. And I'm like, oh, that's not really a good mate, is it? You know. And as an investigator, I need facts. I need to see these things happening. I need to know what's going on. So I asked Graham if I could set some cameras up in his property, you know, and he said, yeah, no worries at all. So I set some cameras up. Now, within a day, even less than a day, as soon as this best mate arrived at his place, he was on to his wife. He was patting her on the bum. He was putting her in corners. He was manipulating her. And she wanted none of it. She didn't want to be a part of it. She was just feeling creepy. And I thought, okay. So I got the information. I got the proof. I got the evidence. And I knew what, you know, Graham was talking about. So Graham and I, you know, we nutted it out. And I said, okay, well, look, you know, I'll interrupt the service whilst he's whilst he's reading a eulogy. How about that?
So the dog best mate was actually reading a eulogy.
Oh yeah, the crocodile tears, the whole lot.
While he for some time now has been trying to upend his best mate's wife.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, Graham said, look, you know, I think that's what we'll do, Bill. I think we'll get you to go in, you know, just interrupt the funeral service and tell my best mate to sit down, shut up or fuck off. And I went, yeah, okay. I said,
wow.
Well, how about, yeah, I know. And I said to Graham, I said, well, how about this, mate? I said, how about I arrive at the funeral as a mourner?
Yeah.
Sit amongst family and friends. Rather than just bust in and do this, I'll sit amongst family and friends, and whilst the best mate's performing the eulogy, 2-3 minutes in, I'll stand up and interrupt the service. And Graham's like, fuck yeah, that's it, Bill. That's what I want.
Oh, wow.
So I said, okay, that's what I'll do. You know, Graham said to me, look, there's another thing I want you to do while you're there. And I said, well, what's that, Graham? And he said, look, everybody's got vultures in the family. And I have a brother, his wife, and their daughter. Now, if they're at my funeral, I want you to tell them to stand up and fuck off. I haven't seen them in 30 years. Why are they there paying their respects now when they could have done it when I was alive? I said, okay. He said, my brother owes me about 30 grand too. So you can tell him to start repaying my wife. I said, okay, no, not a problem, mate.
Wow.
So Graham passes and I arrive at his funeral. Now, like most funerals, you sort of congregate around a particular area and people come up to you and say, oh, how do you know the deceased? And, you know, we're a good friend of Graham's. And I had those people come up to me and say that, and I'd say, oh, yeah, I worked with Graham a while ago and did, you know, small talk, nothing big. I didn't want to let anything out. And I didn't know who's Graham's brother was. I had no idea, you know. But this guy came up to me who was a bit of a loner. He did have somebody with him, but I didn't really take notice. You know. But he sort of gravitated towards me and he said, hi, how are you? How do you know Graham? I said, oh, I just did some work for him. And he goes, oh, yeah. I said, how did you know Graham? He says, oh, he's my brother. I went, oh, beautiful. Sweet. So I found out his brother, his wife and the daughter were there. And it was gold because I didn't really have to do much more because I knew where everybody was. I knew the best man was at the pew talking the bullshit he was talking. I knew the brother was there and I knew exactly what to say because I had it all written down in an envelope, you know, in my top pocket, which all I had to do was reach in, pull it out, open it up and read it. That's all I had to do. Graham also said to me, look, you know, what do you think about the end of the funeral? What do you want to do after it? And I said, well, Graham, I want to just walk out. I don't know if the funeral's going to continue. I just want to go. What do you reckon? He said, oh, yeah, beautiful. He says, how about I sign the letter and you leave it on my coffin and you just fuck off? And I'm like, that's even better. So then people will know that it's actually you. Wow. And he goes, yeah. Here, also, take this bracelet and the only people know that, everybody that knows me know I wear this bracelet. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, no worries. He said, you can leave that on the coffin too. I said, okay, go, no worries at all. So it was a bit of a, you know, going back and to and forth of what we wanted to do. Anyway, the day arrived and, I sat amongst family and friends. His best mate was, performing a eulogy, the crocodile tears and, you know, and I started to sweat. I'm sitting there.
You're amongst the mourners, amongst the family and friends. Yeah. Go on, just take me through it.
So I'm sitting on, and there's always two sides. Like you have the family side of the area, and then you have the friends side, you know. And I'm sitting sort of in the middle of everyone. But I made sure that I had an exit, so I could get out of the area I was in without being trapped. I always make sure I've got a back door wherever I go or whatever I do. And I'd sort of done a real quick recognizance of the area, you know, so I knew particular areas to go, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, his best mate's performing the eulogy and I had my phone on me.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the time and I put the stopwatch on.
Right.
And he started talking and it was 2 minutes elapsed. And I went, nah, I've heard enough bullshit. And I stood up.
Were you nervous? Or were you...
Yeah.
Or were you really ready to go?
I was nervous because, I mean, it's a funeral. Everyone's mourning. There's people crying. It's just like, you know.
Okay, so 2 minutes is up.
Yeah, 2 minutes is up. And something within me just went, you got to stop this fucker, Bill. That's what Graham wants. Do what he wants and do it now. So I did. I stood up and I said, excuse me, my name's Bill Edgar. Sit down, shut up, or fuck off. The man in the coffin's got something to say, and this is what it is. And I opened the envelope, pull out the letter and I read exactly what was, you know, Graham had written. And he basically said, Brian, you know best mate of mine. You've been trying to screw my wife while I'm on my deathbed. How dare you? Fuck off. Well, I sort of got to the fuck off part and Brian was gone. And a lady followed him out. So presumably that was his wife or girlfriend, whoever it was. But they left. Then I turned and I looked at his brother and his brother looked at me.
His brother went white.
Oh, yeah, straight away. And then, I said to his brother, I said, if... these three people are in the audience, please stand up and you can fuck off as well. Graham says he hasn't seen you in 30 years. He doesn't know why you're here paying your respects now when you could have seen him alive. And don't forget the 30 grand you still owe him. Can you start paying his wife back? Well, before, they even reached the door, a couple of other people just left.
Oh, because they thought it's my turn next.
Yeah, they weren't even being targeted. They just left. Like, it was bizarre. But then, I said what I said and I put the letter back in the envelope, took out the bracelet and put them on the coffin and I walked out. That was it. I had no idea if the funeral continued or not. I've got no idea. I would like to be the fly on the wall, but I wasn't. And it was the best thing I ever did because it set me up to do that for every place that I've been and done. So I just walk out. Now, as I've left, this lady, young girl's come up to me and she said, Bill. And I said, yes. She says, Dad would be so proud. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done for Mum. And I went, not a problem at all. And behind her was another young lady. I thought it was her friend just coming out to support her, And this young lady said, can I get a business card or your number or something? Can you please go and see my auntie? She's in palliative care in hospital. She needs to see you. She needs you. And we swapped details. And on the way home, I stopped at a cafe and I calmed myself and I sat there and I went, holy shit, is this a thing that people need? Surely not. People don't need this. And if they do, what the fuck am I going to call myself? And I sat there for a bit and I went, well, what do I actually do? I stand in front of a coffin and I confess to people. I guess I'm a coffin confessor. And that's how it was born.
How many coffin confessions have you made?
Well, it's over 50.
Oh,
but it's not just coffin confessions now. It's like now I'm doing home sweeps. So I'm going to people's homes and I'm retrieving items that they don't want their family and friends to find. I'm placing items in coffins that they want to take with them. I'm pinpricking the body because people are petrified of being buried or cremated alive. I'm delivering gifts from the afterlife. It's just ridiculous. Doors just kept opening and opening. And over the years, thousands and thousands of people have written to me and told me of their confessions. So I'm engaged to go to the viewing and pinprick the body because my clients are either petrified of being buried or cremated alive.
Really?
Really. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people have fears, and that's one of their fears, and they want to make sure they're dead. I mean, I always thought before they got to the viewing they'd be dead anyway, and they probably are. But at the same time, these people are fearful of, what may come if they are alive. So they want to be pinpricked, and that's a service I've provided.
Well, you're my sort of person with no filter. You're a private investigator, which has always really intrigued me. Is a lot of it really just mundane, watching people, looking for insurance fraud? Now that we have no-fault divorces in Australia, the Family Law Act changed, we don't have private detectives shimmying up drain pipes taking photos of people having affairs anymore. But I guess if you think someone's having an affair, if you think your partner's being unfaithful, if you just want closure, that's probably another reason to hire someone like you. But every private detective I've ever spoken to has told me that if you deep down in your gut believe your partner is being unfaithful, you're probably right. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't.
Do you remember a bloke called Warren Mallard from Lionswood?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I used to talk to. He passed away too, very sadly.
Yes.
That's what he told me. But please disagree. Go.
Yeah, I disagree because I've seen it too many times that the person that's hired the investigator is very jealous, very self-centered or narcissistic or they're just really paranoid. And unfortunately, it's those things that can really damage a marriage, especially a loving one. I've investigated both men and women and they've done nothing wrong. And I've gone back to my client and said, no, they're not having an affair. Sure, they've got a lot of friends. Sure, they go for a drink or sure, they play golf together or tennis or whatever it is. But there is nothing but friendship there. And I like to be the person that brings that news to them. Obviously, there is sometimes, where they are doing the wrong thing, but I find that very minimalistic. I don't find it happens all the time. I find the private investigation industry to be very, it's an industry, so it's corrupt like most industries, really. It really is. I've had women private investigators that will set up a gentleman. They'll go up and they'll hire a woman to go and sit next to him or put their arm around him. They'll quickly take photos and send that back to the wife. It's all bullshit. It's just, So I don't do any of that these days. I haven't done that for a long time. I actually get engaged now to go into large corporations, hotels, and I infiltrate the staff. So I could be hired as a kitchen cleaner, a security guard, or anything like that. And I find out who's stealing stuff from these corporations. And I have 6-week contracts. So I go in for 6 weeks. I infiltrate the staff. And then after 6 weeks, I crack a big hissy fit in front of the staff. And I go, oh, fuck this. I've had enough. I'm out. Management sucks. And I'll walk out and then I'll go back and I'll present my findings to the CEO, the manager, and let them know exactly what's going on within their workplace.
I mean, this has got a reality TV show written all over it. Bill Edgar with a hidden camera and a microphone. I'd watch that.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been offered a lot of money and things for the shows and to do all those things, but I won't sell myself, and my integrity is everything. These people, they want you to sell your soul, and I won't do that. It's mine, and it's something that unless someone comes to me and says, look, we're going to do it this way or your way, and it's got integrity and it's got heart and feeling, then I'll look at it. But at this moment, no. I mean, they are there's an Australian producer and an Englishman and a guy from Vancouver that are all working on a drama series at the moment. Which is really cool, and I'm involved in that, and it's quite a good idea. And again, until you get your green light, you don't really say anything. You sit back and you go, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. No doubt it will happen one day. There's a lot of crap on TV, and I believe this is a lot better.
I saw a promo for something called Honeymoon Island the other day. I thought, oh, Christ, really? Really?
Do we need all that shit?
Edgar is with me, the Coffin Confessor, private investigator, and one of Australia's great characters. As a private investigator, you've investigated a lot. Has anything really shocked you? Really, really shocked you? Because you've seen a lot.
Yeah, I have seen a lot. I've seen a great deal. I guess the one that sticks with me the most would be investigating a first responder that came across the scene of an accident where the two people had died, and the gentleman had actually stole the money from the deceased. Now, the twist in that is I was hired to look into this matter by the actual first responder that stole the money. Yeah, that's the twist. So
take us through that.
He actually saw me on a television show as the Coffin Confessor, but, as the private investigator, that's what led him to get in contact with me. He said, look, in the 80s, I come across an accident and the two people were deceased. I was a truck driver and I stole their money. And my whole life has been trying to pay it forward. And I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars paying for people's groceries, rent, electricity bills, things like that my whole life. He says, in my whole life, my yearning has been to find out who these people were and to say sorry to their family. I need you to do that for me. Yeah. So
living with this guilt, this massive burden.
Yeah.
He had to try and write it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in the end, I did find the people's family. They wanted nothing to do with him, but at the same time, they were happy in a way that their, loving, children's death had amounted to this man doing good for the rest of his life, but also living in guilt. They were quite, they were upset but happy at the same time. So it was quite confronting. And this bloke was he's a very, very, very nice man. He said I don't know why. I don't know why I did it. I just did it. It was just there. It was opportunistic, and it was just, I just did it. And it's one of those things that he's lived with his whole entire life.
How much money was it? Not that it matters, but just out of interest.
It was around $600.
It was in his wallet?
Yeah, it was actually, basically, it was in the centre console of the car that had the accident. And, he knew straight away that the occupants had died. There's just nothing left of them. And, unfortunately, that's what he did.
That is the most horrific story.
Yeah, I mean, there's people all over the world living with stories that, they push deep down inside and they don't want them to come out, and then all of a sudden they find out there's a person in the world that holds secrets and will die before he reveals any of the secrets, and they get in touch with me and they let me know what's happened to them or, what's going on or what they want. There's some very loving secrets as well. There's some funny ones, so I do good, bad, funny and sad. It's across the board. There's a gentleman that's hired me. He's already paid a deposit and he's in Canada and he wants me to go over to his viewing and strip him naked and flip him over in his coffin and write "Kiss This" on his ass. So when his family come in to view his body. So everyone's got something that they want, or a skeleton in the closet. Every person on the planet's got one.
The world of private investigations, by the way, one of my favourite Dire Straits songs. It's a mystery to me. The game commences for the usual fee plus expenses. Confidential information. It's in a diary. This is my investigation. It's not a public inquiry. How am I going?
Yeah, you're doing pretty well there.
It's a great song. Would you recommend it as a profession? Is it intrigue? Is it exciting? Is it good? Is it good money? Is it good money?
Well, what I do, yes, it is, because I'm not the usual private investigator, and it's not like I don't know what it's like in other states, but in Queensland, police officers have to resign at the age of 60. That's it. They must leave the force. All that intelligence, all that training, all that stuff they've got.
All that experience.
Yeah. And they just get turfed out. Now, a lot of them do become private investigators and they keep in the link and, they do things like that. So I investigate finances, the sale of debts from banks to debt collectors. I investigate debt negotiators. The world is fraudulent and, money's the centre console of, fraud. So I follow the paper trail. That's what I've always done. So Is it good money? Yes, it is. If you specialise in something that is, needed in a corporate world, for sure.
Bill Edgar is with me, the Coffin Confessor. Bill, you've had an extremely tough life, and from a very early age, you were surrounded by pretty awful people. You lived on the streets, and you've actually spent some time in one of the toughest prisons in Queensland, Boggo Road. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was surrounded by some pretty evil, terrible people. The most terrible person that I was surrounded by was my own mother. She allowed her father to continually to sexually abuse me from the age of 7.
Your grandfather?
My grandfather. And then at the age of 12, I won a 5-year fully funded scholarship to the prestigious school, the Southport School, otherwise known as TSS. I was dyslexic, I had ADHD, I got everything else you can imagine, and I won this scholarship over everybody else in Australia, and I got the 5-year fully funded scholarship, and I was placed into the pedophiles' playground, where I was abused constantly for nearly 4 years at the school alongside teachers and my grandfather. And it was only last year that the school and the church finally apologised and recognised this, and we came to a settlement. But it took 40 years for me to get where I am today. But yes, I've been surrounded by some of the worst people that you could think of. I've fought some of the hardest men that you could think of. I didn't always win. But I was, I always stood my ground, and I always, as I've said, I've had my integrity, and to be honest with you, I didn't know what integrity was when I was younger. It's only as I was growing up, people would say, well, you're a special person. And I think, well, I'm not special, I'm just me. And I guess it's something that's always driven me is to never give up, to always move forward. And, without my wife, who I met when we were 15, and we're still together today. It's been 40 years now that we've been together. If she hadn't stuck by me and been with me, well, I wouldn't be here today, and neither would the perpetrators.
Have you confronted your mother and your grandfather? Did you get that confrontation?
Oh, yeah, I got the best confrontation on the grandfather for sure. One night I just went to his place in a rage. I was 16 and a half, and I banged on his door. He opened the door, and I held him in my by the throat in my hands, and he just went to water. He wasn't the strong man that I thought and was feared of. He wasn't at all. And I could have taken his life, and I nearly did. And something just said, that's enough. You've got what you want, to go. So I did. I just left him there, spat on him, and walked out. And then at his funeral, I went to the funeral, and after everybody had left, I actually pissed on his coffin. And then every year, Father's Day, I go there and I piss on his grave.
What about your mother?
I don't talk to her. I have nothing to do with her.
Did you confront her for a bit of closure or something? Can you understand why she allowed this to happen?
Absolutely. I mean, 4 days before I went to prison, when I just turned 17, my auntie and my mother came and saw me in Southport. They were looking for me, and they actually found me walking the streets. And they said, did our father do something to you? And I go, he did. You know what he did to me. And they said, but we need to hear it from you. And I'd say to my mother, I say, you knew what he was doing all this time. Why do you need to hear it from me? And she says, because Auntie Pam needs to know as well. I said, Auntie Pam knows. Everybody knows what he did to me. I told you, I screamed, I shouted, I kicked. I did everything I could for you to listen to me, but you kept allowing him to take me in or be with me on his own. You allowed me, instead of the other siblings, to go with him. And okay, it was me. But I said, you did that. You made me who I am. And then I went to jail, and you know what? Jail was full of people that were being abused. You know what I found and what I learnt is that they weren't in there because they were being abused, or even in there because of the excuse of being abused. They were in there because half the time they didn't do anything wrong. They really didn't. It wasn't, if this had never happened to those people like myself, I probably wouldn't be where I am today either. It's just... it's just one of those things. But my mother, look, I could walk a place on the Gold Coast now and probably bump into her. I mean, I haven't in 20, 30 years. She's probably seen me and avoids me. I don't know. And if I did, I don't have a problem with her. I really don't. It's gone. It's past. It's over. I never want to see her or talk to her. And I've always said to people, and there's a lot of people in my life, that I don't want to see you not eat. I just don't want you to eat at my table.
So you kind of let your mother go, but you still piss on your grandfather's grave every Father's Day.
Yeah, it's something I've always done. It's just something I've done. I've never sort of let it go.
No.
It's, I don't know. The perpetrator was my grandfather, and then I found out my mother allowed it to happen and continue for so long. And she did try to apologise years and years ago. No, I just wouldn't allow that to happen. I didn't want to hear about it. Even my auntie would say, oh, he abused me too. And then she'd say, oh, he didn't really. And I go, well, what the fuck? What's the secret? Families have got secrets, and it's just terrible when they uncover the secrets and you find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And these days, and I've noticed this as a PI, everybody wants to be the fucking victim. It astounds me because, people play the victim. And a lot of times I've investigated certain things that they say happened, they didn't happen. And I'm very thorough when it comes to abuse of a child or something like that. If I get asked to investigate somebody, obviously I report it and I'll investigate it. But a lot of times, it's a scream for help in another direction. It's not actually abuse.
What led you to Boggo Road?
Not having a fucking place to live, to be honest with you. No, look, we had a place on the Gold Coast called Fisherman's Wharf. It was a huge event place everyone went to on a Sunday, and they all got pissed and listened to live bands, and it was a great place to hang out. And I went to this place, and I stole a cigarette off this bloke at the bar. And this bloke wasn't your average bloke. Let's say he was a detective, and I got arrested.
For stealing a cigarette?
It was the original offence was robbery in company. And I wasn't in company with anybody, but because I was surrounded by so many people, it was robbery in company. And then it became to demanding property with menaces. And then the two young blokes that I knew who were there, who also got arrested on a different account, but we were all put together in this paddy wagon, those two were up for armed robbery. So I was mixed up with them too. And I had to stand in the dock and listen to their charges. And the judge says, all three of you go downstairs. You're going to wait in remand. You're all going to jail. And I went, hey, I'm not part of that. But
I stole a cigarette. I didn't have anything to do with the armed robbery.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But they didn't want to listen to a 17-year-old kid. That was beyond them. They just went, nah.
It's the old saying, you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. You got up with fleas, you went to jail.
Oh, fuck yeah.
How long were you in jail for?
Funny enough, I was in and out because I was on remand so many times. So I'd go in for 3 months, come out for 2 months, go in for 6 months, come out for 3 months, and it was back and forth. So I spent my 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st birthdays in jail. A lot of the time, it was the most educational place I ever went. It was the hardest place I ever went, and I feared. I came out not knowing what fear was because fear had just left me in that place. It was bizarre. I got to say, and I've written it in my book and described exactly the feeling of walking into Boggo Road for the very first time. You get driven in, you get out of the car, you stand on the yellow line. Back in the 80s, you had to salute. It's something you had to do. You had to salute the officers. And, the guy beside me said, I'm not saluting anybody. I think he lost 3 teeth, nose and jaw. The screws just beat the shit out of him right beside me. And I'm a 17-year-old kid, and I'm thinking, holy shit, I'm not only going to salute, I'm going to say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Yeah, it was very frightening. It was an education that you just could not buy.
You are a remarkable bloke, and I'm hoping that we can get you back on this podcast again for more of your stories. The books, Bill Edgar, The Coffin Confessor, One Man's Fight to Survive the Past and Leave Nothing to Fate, and The Afterlife Confessional, Bill Edgar, True Stories from The Coffin Confessor, out on Penguin through Random House. Are they talking books too? Can we hear them?
Absolutely, yeah. I narrate both of them. I enjoyed doing it. At first, I was like, who wants to listen to me do this? But since I've done it, I've been inundated with requests to do a third book, which I'm halfway through now.
What's it called?
It's Go Your Own Way. A bit of a slant on the song.
I was about to say, we start with private investigations from Dire Straits, and now we're into Fleetwood Mac.
We are, yeah, definitely. Go Your Own Way.
Mate, thank you so much for sharing so much. And can we do this again?
Anytime. It's been a pleasure, and it's been great. I enjoy it.
I want to ask you, because maybe being incarcerated today is different to when you were incarcerated, but does jail offer rehabilitation?
Jail offers self-rehabilitation. If you want to rehabilitate yourself, absolutely not a problem. You'll do it. If you don't and you just want to be like all the rest, you won't. I found myself fighting, and I fought every day. Not people. I fought not to be like them. And that's a hard thing because you can easily fall into the system and you can become one of them. You can come out worse and you can go back twice as bad. So rehabilitation is, I don't care who you are, it's on you. There's a lot of programs and there's things put in place to help you and assist you, but it's up to you. And that's purely, and you know, it really is up to you. You know, if you want to be rehabilitated, absolutely. You want to change your life, go for it. You know, there's one quick story I'll tell you is that when I left Bogger Road at 21 years of age, they walked me out the front gate and I stood at the gate and I took my shoes off and I walked down the road in my socks, and the screw yelled out, he said, Billy, where the fuck you think you're going? Come back and get your shoes. And I turned around and looked at him and I said, they brought me in here. There's no way they're bringing me back. Now, that story has continued. I've heard that story from other prisoners in the last 10, 15 years, and they go, oh, this guy left his shoes at the gate and he walked off, and I'll sit there and I go, yeah, I did. And they never brought me back. So you just got to leave what's happened in there or you've done. You've got to leave it behind. Never forget it. Never forget where you come from. But it's a learning curve. It's a tool you can use, and it's something that assists me to do what I do today.
Bill Edgar, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. You are a true character, and you've got a lot more to say. So what about we do this again?
Anytime. It'd be a pleasure.